Okay, hi. I'm a mindfulness teacher, so I'm going to suggest that we start this session with just 10 seconds of silence. So just as a kind of a way to bring us into a kind of settled and just giving space to the room for a moment. So 10 seconds is probably about 5 breaths. Would that be all right? 5 breaths. So just lowering your eyes and breathing. Isn't that amazing? So I have a background in astronomy. I was ended up as a ESO fellow, and it's been about 12 years since I left astronomy, and it's been great. It's the first scientific conference I've come back to since leaving astronomy, and it's just so interesting to walk around and actually see quite a few familiar faces. But yeah, it's been 12 years since I left astronomy, so in a sense, I'm one of the people for which astronomy didn't work out. And there was lots and lots of reasons for that. I ended up in a place where I wanted to reprioritize my life. And up to that point, I had put work and astronomy as like the top priority. And my relationships had been really struggling. And I just started a new relationship, and I decided there was no way really to carry on doing astronomy and then start this relationship. And so I quit. And it was a bit of a leap, but it's worked out well. I married that woman, and you know, worked out okay. So let's see. So mm, I suppose I used to come to these conferences like many people, right? So come to these conferences and talk all about results and papers and conclusions and things. But yeah, so this session is all really more about the why and a bit about the how. So I'm going to build a little bit on what was spoken about earlier by that philosopher. I forget her name. That lovely talk we were hearing about the sort of way in which astronomy culture works and some of the difficulties. I think astronomy is the most awe-inspiring subject of all. That's why I got into astronomy. And I left astronomy, I took up teaching yoga and then teaching meditation, mindfulness, and that's kind of what I do now. Um, I meet at some of the events I've done, I sometimes meet kids, and I can think of a couple of 6, 7 year olds who I've met that know so much about astronomy that it boggles your mind. Like, where did they get all that? I mean, have you done a PhD already? Wow, that's amazing. And I think astronomy is one of those subjects that just captures everyone's imagination. I was just talking to a lady at lunchtime, and we were just reflecting about having children and the kind of things. And she was saying, I think dinosaurs is the other one. But I wonder if that many people who were into dinosaurs when they were 6 end up being interested in dinosaurs when they're adults. But I think astronomy has that more multicultural appeal. Like, people can remember when their grandfather or their grandmother were talking to them about the constellation and kind of being enthused about astronomy across the generations and across culture and across the centuries as well. So I'd wager that most of us here can remember the point in which they got interested in astronomy. What is it that ignited that passion? So I'm going to suggest that we do a little bit of speed dating. So I'd like you to find the person next to you, and I'm going to give you 1 minute to just discuss or exchange with the person about what got you into science in the first place. Maybe just thinking. So just 1 minute. quickly with the person next to you. Okay, thank you. Yep. All right, so now if you turn to another person in the other direction, because I think this is really interesting. It's really interesting to hear people's stories, all right? If you turn to someone else next to you, and again, just I give you half a minute this time to exchange. Just find someone else. I think it's so interesting, huh? But I think that somewhere between that moment and then maybe the acceleration into excitement of getting into science and then deciding to study it, and now something happens. And it certainly did for me, like as a, few years into postdoc, and it's all the kind of things that we've been talking about, publications and to-do lists, and I think I used to think I used to tell my friends, right? So if I sat down in front of my computer and actually thought what I was doing, my mind would be blown completely. My God, this is a galaxy. It's 12 million light years away, and it's forming stars. I was studying starbursts, so it's forming stars at like 100 stars per year, and the energy that's involved and the timescale that's involved, I'd be like, this is amazing. But of course you don't, right? So you have to sit there and do all the data reduction and, all the rest of it, and go to meetings and blah, blah, blah. So I think from the outside, and kind of speaking from where I am now, what we do is absolutely incredible, but it's so easy to forget. And that's really what I'm going to talk about today, is how do we get back, or how do we maintain at least somewhat of a foot in that world? I remember the first time I went to Hawaii, I had a 2-night observing run on the Subaru telescope with some Japanese collaborators, and we went there. So I went to Hawaii, and I went up the mountain, and you go into the control room, and you're all excited, do all those things that Abigail was talking about, and you emerge in the morning, it's dawn. And that happened 2 nights in a row, and it was months, I think maybe even years later, before I realized I hadn't looked at the night sky. And I was on Mauna Kea, and that was my first time on Mauna Kea. I was like, my God, what is going on? Why do I not feel like that's important? So the mystery and wonder of the universe becomes just a job. I think this is a broader cultural phenomenon. I don't think astronomers are particularly, separate or different. We're just working in astronomy rather than other fields, right? So people in this modern age, they prioritize thinking over experience, right? It's all about concepts over feeling. I think that's just the world we live in, right? People are increasingly in their heads, and maybe in the heads means more living in a thought world where we think about it, but we don't actually experience it so much. And then we cut ourselves off from the awe. Now, worst, as we've been talking about, the worst situation is that disconnect leads to anxiety. It leads to a kind of sense of separation, alienation, and then, of course, that all spirals down towards depression or burnout, as we've mentioned many times. Burnout. I mean, burnout is the most horrible place. I've known a number of people that have been just so exhausted that their life just disappears, right? And I think, again, this reflects the broader society. We were talking a bit before about how people wear that as a badge of honor, and it's why? How have we got to that point? Well, I think what it is that partly we live in a society overall which is awe deprived. How often do we feel awe? Or maybe even how often do we allow ourselves to even move in that direction? And like now, what I do is I run evenings. I run kind of retreats and events where I try to help people to reconnect with that awe. And I've been working with a lady who does forest bathing, if anyone's ever done that. And forest bathing is all about that. You go into a forest and you kind of feeling awe around the nature and the natural world. And of course, we can do that equally in the night sky, and not just the night sky, but with the data and images and all the stuff that we get from our telescopes. Research shows that feeling awe on a regular basis really helps with our mental health. No surprises. But why? I think really it helps us to gain perspective. So awe is, I mean, maybe it's worth unpacking. Awe is the experience that we feel when we contact something which is enormous. And it's so enormous that we feel kind of afraid. We feel so small in amongst something that's so big. And there's that sense of like, oh my God, I'm so insignificant in all of this. It sometimes closes us down because I don't want to feel afraid. I want to feel big, I'm important. But actually, when I see this, the whole universe, am I important? I mean, our anxieties, I've loved that phrase, which this philosopher lady was saying earlier, like, in the timescales of the universe, our anxieties are absolutely insignificant. How easy is it to forget that? Now, to feel awe, I'd say, is to come back into a felt sense of our relationship with the universe. And that's really the problem. We've moved too far towards concepts and ideas and thoughts about it, and we just forget or we disconnect from the feeling. So let's see, how do we come back? This one? That's it. How do we find ourselves our way back? Well, I've got 3 points, right? Don't do what I did on Mauna Kea. Look up and do it often. I mean, I don't know how many of us. I speak to people. They take their dog out for a walk in the evening at night time, go for a wee in the night time, and they notice it's really beautiful and clear. That's probably about as far as it gets, even for us who are astronomers. Maybe you do better. I mean, I really hope so. Take your kids out. Don't miss the opportunities that come, because most of us probably live in countries that are pretty cloudy. At least, here in Cork it's very cloudy, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah, so feel it, don't think it. Let your mind be blown. Let yourself feel that sense of like, oh my God, this is incredible. And then the other thing that's come up a lot, so I've got a little 3-year-old, he's not quite there yet, but sometimes if it's dark enough, like in the winter, it's dark enough early enough, we can share a bit of that wonder together. And I'm really hoping as he gets older, they can do more. Maybe you've got kids that you can do this with. Oh, but not just kids, friends or other people you can share. Because I think when we got students or the more we share that wonder, that it's infectious, and they're like, oh my God, and then suddenly boom, boom, boom. Now I'd like to offer a practice in how to find awe. This is an image from the Chandra telescope of Cas A, and with the wonders of an X-ray telescope, you can dissect from the spectroscopy the different chemicals that are present, and even in the images, right? So here, this is an image in just the calcium line, and that you can measure the quantity of material, roughly estimate the quantity of material this supernova has ejected. So they measure something like 10,000 times the mass of our Earth in calcium alone. Okay, now I'd like you to bring your attention into your mouth and just move your tongue around your teeth. Now they're very familiar, right? So we're all very familiar with our teeth and how it feels. Bottom teeth, top teeth. Teeth are coated in enamel, and enamel is a calcium phosphate. We know this. Calcium phosphate You need to drink your milk because it has calcium in it, because it helps your teeth. So now as we feel our teeth, we can know that that's made of calcium that comes from a supernova. Like, we know this, right? We know it intellectually, but when you move your tongue around inside, you're actually feeling material that was once inside a supernova billions of years ago. Isn't that incredible? And it's so accessible, right? So then there's been some papers that show that phosphorus also is detected in the supernova ejector, and oxygen also in the supernova. So every component that you need to make your teeth was formed inside a supernova. So I would like to say that science isn't just a tool for understanding the universe, and it's not just a universe that's out there. This is something that's very easy to get into this conceptual state, right? We're looking at our data, or we're looking at this, even looking at the sky, and we think it's out there. No, we're in it, right? So as a scientist, we are studying what we live in. And I think maybe it's easier if you're doing biology or you're doing chemistry or something like that. But it's so easy as an astronomer to think it's separate. But we can use our science to get a sense of like, okay, I am actually part of this, right? The structure and formation, evolution of the universe includes me. I am a product of this evolution of the universe that I'm studying. And I think if we shift from that place of detachment to a place of participation, then that helps to kind of like bring us all into it. Oh, here we are. So I'm going to just finish with an invitation that I think perhaps we could take away. Like, let's not let awe be a casualty of our professional studies. Remember what it feels like to be amazed and be amazed. It's not something we need to go elsewhere for. You know, you can. I teach people how to do mindfulness. Sometimes I ask people to, like, if we're doing it in a business, I might ask people to come in the morning and change their password on their computer so that when you type in a password, it means like calm or something that's going to help them to come into a more of a, regulated state. But I wonder if perhaps we could make that a practice every day to notice the things that you do and the things that you look at. It's like, it's amazing. And if we do that every day, that can change, even if it's just for like brief passing moment. And allow the universe to move us, not just inform us. I think that's how we make it more meaningful, bring it back alive, because I think reconnecting or remembering what got us into astronomy in the first place and what gets us passionate. I think as astronomers, we're not really supposed to be passionate. I don't know, is that right? I mean, when does passion come up? Maybe when we do a job application, we're supposed to be passionate. But then otherwise, there's dispassion, right? You have to write your papers in a completely third-person, non-passionate way. And you have to pretend like this isn't important. But somehow, if we just find moments where we bring in that importance, it can just spark something and change your trajectory. And hopefully it leads us away from disillusionment, anxiety, separation, and depression and burnout, all the other things we can talk about. So I hope, that's my hope. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mark, for grounding us in what got it all started, and in inviting at least us not to lose that. So are there any questions?
Well, thank you for this very inspiring talk. I wanted to ask, I tried to set up a mindfulness practice in my institute with very little success. Is there any recommendation?
Start small. I mean, maybe we've spoken a bit, like talk about it, like other people have said earlier today about like if things are going on, difficulty in your mental health, or just trying to talk about it, and also with mindfulness, like talk to people about why it's important, what are the benefits, why we want to do that. And I think if people see that some people are doing it, then there's much more of an interest to join. I mean, there is here a mindfulness session every morning, and I think it's the most incredible thing that is being offered. And I went along this morning, and it was great. There was only a few people, but the fact that it's there and it's offered and it's a way in. Like, okay, I'm interested. What can I find out about it? Is this for me? Like, yeah. So I would really recommend, if you're interested, go along tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. It's a bit of a struggle, but yeah. I mean, just kind of little seeds, huh? Yeah.
I don't know if this counts as a question or more of an observation, but I found that sometimes when you've learned something a long time ago, even if it's amazing, it sort of becomes familiar. Like you mentioned now about calcium, and I've heard that we are made of elements created in supernova since I was a kid. So I am intellectually aware that's amazing, but it stopped making really an effect. So how do we recapture that?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think you exactly right. We are all familiar with that kind of knowledge, and we've known it for years and years. So make it real. Touch your teeth. Feel your skin. So your skin is made of proteins, made of amino acids, and amino acids are made of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. And those elements would have come from stars like our sun. If you wear gold jewelry, there's a tiny bit of gold that will have been absorbed into your body. And within your body, you have material which was made inside a neutron star collision, which is vanishingly rare. I mean, in your body. And it's just kind of making it real like that, rather than making it just knowledge about it.
I have a curiosity sort of comment. So, thinking about my journey, I was towards the end of my PhD, I felt a lot of these feelings of helplessness and isolation and frustration, alienation, and so on. And then I rediscovered the awe, a bit like you described, by turning myself into no, that's putting myself into the work of outreach and public engagement. That's what gave me the strength. But then it took me many years I still remained attached to the astronomy community, but I wouldn't call myself an astronomer or astrophysicist anymore because I wasn't practicing by the books. And now I'm very much at peace with all of that. But is that what would be a way to rediscover the awe in the current coding and writing Python scripts and applying for time on telescope and so on?
Yeah. So I think there's two elements that come to mind. There's the daily practice of sitting down in front of your computer and just realizing, what am I doing? Yeah, I'm coding Python, but I'm coding Python in order to, I don't know, like work out from this enormous data set the evolution of galaxies. And I'm just going to sit down and really can ponder that. But then I think there's the other thing is sharing publicly. And I think maybe as astronomers, we all have a responsibility or maybe a importance to share what we're doing on some level, you know, with, and I think when you write grant proposals, there's always a section about how you're going to share this stuff. So like get out there and just talk about it, even if it's just at parties or at house dinners or whatever like that. Just talk about it and just kind of a little element of what you're doing. Reach out and share the wonder. Yeah, I think.
Okay, final question.
Thank you, Mark. You mentioned this is the first astronomy meeting you've been to in 12 years, I think. Do you have or are you interested to do these sorts of talks or coaching sessions for, you know, different scientific groups or community as a potential resource for them?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
Thanks a lot then, Mark, and yeah, hoping to meeting you more often.